The heavy stick in Nkechi's hand slammed down again, the sharp sound echoing against the marble tiles of the guest room. Each blow landed on the fragile back of Mama Grace, an 80-year-old blind woman curled up on the floor, her silver hair disheveled, her frail body trembling. "You will not stop until you ruin my life, right? Just die already," Nkechi screamed, her voice hoarse with rage and desperation. Mama Grace whimpered softly, her fingers thin-veined shaking, shielding her head, though she could not see where the next strike would come from. Her clouded eyes stared blankly into the void, her lips whispering incoherently. "Nkechi? My daughter?" She pleaded, her voice breaking. "What have I done to you? Why are you hurting me?" But Nkechi's face twisted with bitterness. Tears and sweat mixed on her skin as she raised the stick again. "Don't pretend you don't know," she shouted. 5 years in this house and still no child. Doctors' prayers, fasting, nothing worked. You cursed me, Mama Grace. You blocked my womb. You're a witch." The cane came down again, and the old woman's cry pierced the silence. The mansion, usually filled with laughter, and the clatter of staff, was quiet that afternoon. Only the thud of wood against fragile flesh and the sharp, ragged breaths of a furious woman filled the air. Nkechi stood over the helpless figure, her chest heaving, her eyes red with fury and despair. It was not just anger. It was fear, planted and watered by late-night whispers from her so-called friend Ngozi. "How can a blind old woman still live while you, young and strong, cannot bear children?" Ngozi had said. "She must be eating your babies in the spirit realm. Until she dies, you will never conceive." Those words had grown like poison in Nkechi's heart. As Mama Grace lay shivering on the floor, the door suddenly creaked open. A tall figure appeared in the doorway. Broad shoulders, tailored suit, half undone, a face frozen in shock. It was Chinedu. He wasn't supposed to be home. He had left an important business meeting in Abuja, halfway driven by a nagging pull in his chest, a son's instinct to check on his mother. And now, standing at the threshold, he was witnessing a nightmare. His eyes darted from the stick clenched in his wife's trembling hand to the welts rising on his mother's back. For a moment, his lungs forgot how to breathe. "Nkechi." His voice was low, cold, shaking. "What are you doing?" The stick slipped from her hand, clattering against the tiles. She froze, her lips parting as if to form words, but none came out. I can explain," she stammered, stepping back, shame and fear flashing across her face. But Chinedu had already moved. His stride was fast fueled by anger boiling in his chest. He had never seen his wife like this, eyes wild, hand raised against the woman who gave him life. This was not the woman he married 5 years ago, not the woman who once served his mother tea with a gentle smile. Before she could utter another excuse, his palm landed sharply across her cheek. The sound echoed in the room like a gunshot. Nkechi stumbled to the floor, clutching her face in shock, her eyes wide, her breath broken. She had never seen Chinedu this way. "Mama," he cried, falling to his knees beside the frail figure. He cradled her, carefully brushing her damp hair from her face. "Mama, can you hear me? It's me. It's Chinedu." "Chinedu?" Mama Grace whispered weakly, tears sliding down her cheeks. Why is she beating me?" "I did nothing." Chinedu's own tears blurred his vision as he lifted her into his arms. She was too light, frighteningly light, as though years of suffering had hollowed her body. He turned back once toward Nkechi, this woman he had trusted with his home, his love, and now his mother's safety. The betrayal stabbed deeper than any wound. "Driver," he roared as he carried Mama Grace out of the room like a child. "Start the car now. We're going to the hospital." Nkechi remained on the floor, her face burning from the slap. But the real pain clawed inside her chest. She wanted to scream, to justify, to shift the blame onto Ngozi's poisonous words. But guilt and pride tangled in her throat, leaving her silent. The grand guest room was empty now, except for the abandoned stick lying cold on the tiles. The echoes of Mama Grace's cries hung in the air like ghosts mingling with the heavy silence. And in that silence, Nkechi's world began to crack. The sterile white walls of the hospital seemed colder that night. Machines hummed faintly, nurses moved quickly past, and Chinedu sat outside the emergency ward, his hands clenched together so tightly his knuckles turned white. His loosened tie hung carelessly around his neck, His once perfect suit now crumpled like a man undone. For over an hour he hadn't spoken a word. His mind replayed the image again and again, his mother's frail body trembling under the blows of the woman he thought he loved. The betrayal was louder than the tick of the clock on the wall. Finally, a nurse stepped out. She was young, her voice calm but heavy with news. "Sir, she's stable for now," she said softly. "But we'll keep her under observation for at least 48 hours. Her heart rate was irregular when she came in. At her age, any more stress could be fatal." Chinedu closed his eyes and nodded. His throat ached, but he forced the words out. "Can I see her?" The nurse led him inside. On the bed lay Mama Grace, her skin pale against the crisp white sheets, a drip attached to her hand. Her chest rose and fell slowly, but when she heard his voice, her lips curved faintly. "My son," she whispered. "Mama," he said, rushing to her side. He gripped her frail hand, feeling its tremor. "I'm sorry. I should never have left you with her. I should have known something was wrong." "No," she interrupted weakly, squeezing his hand with surprising strength. "You didn't know." She pretended well. Chinedu's brows furrowed. "Pretended? What do you mean?" Mama Grace swallowed, her voice trembling. "She hated me, Chinedu. From the beginning. I felt it in her words, her silence, her eyes. But I stayed quiet. You were trying for a child. I didn't want to make it harder for you." Her lips quivered, and Chinedu felt his heart fractured deeper. "I just don't understand why she changed," he whispered. Mama Grace exhaled slowly, her blind eyes glistening. "It's not her alone. Someone fed her lies. Someone planted this hate in her heart." Chinedu stared at his mother, his chest burning with anger and sorrow. He could already guess who. Back at the mansion, Nkechi stood in front of the mirror, touching her cheek where Chinedu's hand had landed earlier. The redness had faded slightly, but the sting inside her chest remained raw. She remembered the silence of the house after he stormed out with Mama Grace in his arms. The emptiness felt like a curse. No footsteps of staff, no hum of life, only the ghost of her actions echoing against the walls. She sat at the dining table, her head resting on the polished surface, but the quiet did not comfort her. Instead, it unleashed the voice that had brought her here. "Nkechi, open your eyes," Ngozi had whispered weeks earlier over the phone. "Why do you think you've not conceived? That old woman is behind it." "Ngozi, please stop," she had said back then. "Mama Grace is blind. She's weak. She can barely walk without help. And that's why it's easy for you to be fooled," Ngozi had snapped. "Witches don't fly on broomsticks anymore. They curse with words. Every prayer she mutters is binding your womb. Until she's gone, you will never bear a child." That was the day her fear had shifted into hate. Nkechi pressed her palms against her ears, now trying to shut out the memory. But it was too late. The poison had already done its work, and she had carried it out with her own hands. 2 nights passed. Chinedu never left the hospital. He slept in the waiting room chairs, his head resting in his palms, his heart pounding with betrayal. He replayed every moment of the last 5 years, Nkechi's smiles, their laughter, their vows before God. All of it now shadowed by the image of his mother crying beneath her blows. On the second night, Mama Grace was finally strong enough to sit up. She smiled faintly when Chinedu entered, though her body trembled. "Ben," she started, then corrected herself with a soft chuckle. "Chinedu, my son." He sat beside her and held her hand. "Mama, you don't need to stay quiet anymore. I know now. She almost killed you. She may not even feel sorry." Mama Grace looked toward him, her blind eyes seeming to pierce deeper than sight. "She is lost. But sometimes people get lost because they listen to the wrong voice." Chinedu's jaw tightened. He stood abruptly, pacing the small room. "I can't keep pretending everything is fine. She brought darkness into this house. She nearly destroyed you, Mama. And I don't think I can forgive her." Mama Grace nodded slowly, her frail hand trembling. "I will pray for her. But you, my son, you must decide what kind of home you want to keep. A house divided cannot stand." Chinedu swallowed hard, staring at the floor. His mother's words cut deep, but they were true. That night, as he left the hospital, his mind was no longer clouded. He knew what he had to do. And back at the mansion, Nkechi was waiting, dressed carefully, her hair neatly tied her face, painted with soft makeup to hide her guilt. She rehearsed her smile in the mirror, the smile she used to win him years ago. But when she heard his footsteps, something inside her told her this time it would not be enough. The evening air was heavy when Chinedu finally returned to the mansion. The staff usually bustling through the halls had been dismissed days earlier. The house was silent, a silence that weighed more than noise ever could. On the staircase, Nkechi appeared. She had dressed herself carefully, a neat wrapper makeup hiding the fading bruise on her cheek, her hair styled just as he used to like it. Her smile trembled at the corners, forced but hopeful. "Chinedu," she said softly, stepping toward him. "Thank God you're back. How's Mama?" "I've been praying for her." He did not embrace her. He did not even stop. He walked past her and sat on the leather couch in the living room, his face cold. "She's fine," he said flatly. "She'll be discharged tomorrow. That's good." Nkechi nodded quickly, her hands wringing in front of her like a child caught in a lie. The silence stretched long between them, sharp and suffocating. Then Chinedu lifted his gaze, and his words landed like a hammer. "I want a divorce." Nkechi staggered back, as if he had struck her again. "What, you heard me?" His voice was steady, stripped of all emotion. "We're done. No, Chinedu, please." She rushed to his side, falling to her knees. "I was confused. I was scared. I didn't know what I was doing. You beat my blind mother with a stick." His eyes burned with something colder than rage. "You called her a witch. You broke her heart and you broke this marriage." "Please," she sobbed, clutching his leg. "It was Ngozi. She told me Mama was behind it. She planted those thoughts. I didn't mean to." "Exactly," he snapped, pulling his leg away. "You listened to outsiders. You let another woman poison what we had. And now you expect me to forgive. No, Nkechi, this is the consequence." Her wails echoed through the hall, but Chinedu turned his back, his decision unshakable. 2 days later, the news broke. Headlines splashed across blogs and newspapers. Billionaire CEO Chinedu Okafor files for divorce. Wife accused of abusing blind mother-in-law. Divorce confirmed, new woman appears beside the billionaire. Photos circulated, images of Chinedu at a private press conference. His tie crisp, his face composed. But it was the woman beside him who drew the world's attention. "This is Dr. Amara," Chinedu announced calmly. "She is a medical doctor who helped save my mother's life. She reminds me that peace and kindness still exist." Flashbulbs erupted. The press leaned forward, desperate for more. Dr. Amara stood tall, dark-skinned and elegant, dressed in a white midi gown that radiated simplicity and grace. She did not speak. She didn't need to. Her presence, serene and poised, spoke volumes, and on her finger sparkled a diamond ring. The internet exploded within hours. Social media feeds filled with side-by-side photos, Nkechi disheveled and weeping contrasted against Amara's radiant calm. Hashtags trended. Memes spread like wildfire. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, she once ruled Nkechi sat curled on the couch in the same wrapper she had worn for 2 days. Her eyes were swollen from endless tears. The television flickered in the background until a breaking news segment forced her upright. CEO Chinedu Okafor has officially introduced his new partner, Dr. Amara, to the public. Social media is buzzing as photos of the couple flood the internet. Nkechi's heart sank as images filled the screen, Chinedu smiling, holding Amara's hand. Amara laughing beside him at a charity event. They looked perfect together, everything Nkechi thought she had. Her throat closed. "Is this why you left me so easily?" she whispered at the screen. Was she the real reason her phone slipped from her lap? But moments later, rage overtook her. She grabbed it again and opened her chat with Ngozi. "Ngozi, you told me to fight her. You said Mama Grace was the problem. Now look, I've lost everything. He has another woman, and I have shame." Minutes passed. No reply. "Ngozi," she typed again, her tears smudging the screen. "I trusted you. I did everything you said. And now, I have nothing." Still silence. Finally trembling, she clicked on Ngozi's profile. The display picture was a dim photo of a broken ceiling. The bio read, "Izinafite Village, Anambra." Nkechi's jaw tightened as the truth hit her like a flood. She had been taking counsel from a woman who had nothing, no husband, no stability, no joy. Ngozi had fed her lies out of bitterness, out of envy, and Nkechi had let her. Days later, Chinedu returned one last time, not to reconcile, but to end it completely. Nkechi ran out barefoot, her scarf slipping as she saw him. "Chinedu, please, can we talk? Just once more." He stopped but did not soften. His voice was low. "I don't hate you, Nkechi, but I can't trust you anymore." Tears welled in her eyes. "I was wrong. Ngozi lied to me. I let her poison my heart. But I see it now. Please, give me one more chance." "You listened," he replied firmly. "That was your choice, and you beat my mother because of it. Do you know what that did to her?" To me, her sobs shook her shoulders. "She was all I had, too." "No," he said, shaking his head. "You had me, and you lost me." He handed her a white envelope. "These are the divorce papers. I've reclaimed the mansion and the supermarket. A lawyer will contact you about the rest." Then he turned and walked away, his figure steady as heart, no longer hers. Nkechi crumpled onto the ground, the dust clinging to her tears. For the first time, she realized she was no longer a billionaire's wife. She was nothing, and yet she had not seen the bottom of her fall. Because soon the village would become her new home. 1 week after the divorce papers were served, the once lavish mansion gates were locked, supermarkets shut down under court order, and Nkechi returned to the very place she had long abandoned, her parents' mud house in the village. She came back barefoot, a single bag slung over her shoulder. Her wrapper was faded, her scarf loose. The neighbors whispered as she walked past, "Is that not Madame Nkechi, the billionaire's wife? Ehya, see how the mighty have fallen." In the compound, children chased each other around the mango tree, their laughter cutting through the air. Nkechi sank onto a wooden bench, her hollow eyes fixed on the horizon. She had no husband, no job, no friends, just regret. Her days became painfully quiet. She fetched water from the well-bought dried fish on credit from Mama Nkechi and listened to the endless gossip of the village women. Nights were worse. She would lie awake on the mat, haunted by the cries of Mama Grace, by Chinedu's cold eyes as he walked away. Then one afternoon, a knock echoed on the wooden door. She froze. Hardly anyone visited her now. "Who is there?" she called. The door creaked open, and standing there was someone she never expected. Dr. Amara. But she wasn't alone. In her arms were 2 baby girls wrapped in pink and white shawls. One slept peacefully, her tiny lips pursed. The other stared wide-eyed at Nkechi, her gaze piercing. Nkechi's breath caught. Her knees weakened. What are you doing here?" she whispered, voice cracking. Amara didn't answer immediately. She simply looked at Nkechi, not with scorn, not with pride, but with a calm compassion that disarmed her. Finally, she said, "We came for a medical outreach in the neighboring town. I asked Chinedu if I could see you before we left." At the mention of his name, Nkechi flinched. He knows you came." Amara nodded gently. Silence stretched between them, heavy but strangely tender. Nkechi's eyes drifted to the babies. Twins. Healthy, peaceful, beautiful. Her throat closed. "So God did not block your womb," she murmured, tears spilling. Amara adjusted one child in her arm and sighed. "It was never about blocked wombs, Nkechi. It was about blocked hearts." The words struck like lightning. Nkechi's knees gave out, and she sank to the dusty floor. Her body shook as sobs ripped out of her chest. "I ruined my life. I let fear and hate destroy me. I hurt your mother. I hurt everyone." Amara knelt beside her, careful not to wake the babies. "You're not the first person who's been misled," she said softly. "But sometimes we must face the weight of our choices before we find the path to peace." Nkechi raised her swollen eyes. "She forgave me," "Yes," Amara replied firmly. "Before our wedding, Mama Grace told Chinedu that she forgave you. She said she saw the pain in your eyes long before the cane." Nkechi's face crumbled. She buried her hands in her lap, sobbing harder than ever. "I wish I could go back. I wish I never listened to Ngozi." "You can't go back," Amara said, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "But you can go forward. Start again. Live simply. Learn to love yourself without needing a man's name to define you." A seed of something fragile, trembling, sprouted in Nkechi's heart. Hope. As Amara stood to leave, one of the twins blinked awake and cooed softly. Without thinking, Nkechi reached out and Amara let her hold the baby for a moment. Tears slid down her cheeks as she cradled the child. She smells like him, Nkechi whispered. Amara nodded. She has his stubborn eyes too. They both chuckled faintly, two women from two different worlds, joined by fate and pain. Will you tell him I'm sorry, Nkechi asked. I already did, Amara replied gently, but I'll tell him again. She took the baby back, tightened the shawls, and turned toward the narrow village path. Take care of yourself, Nkechi. It's never too late to rewrite your story. Nkechi sat for a long time after Amara disappeared down the dusty road, her palms still warm from the baby's body. For the first time in months, she whispered, "Thank you." But when she turned back toward the compound, her breath caught. There, leaning casually against the mango tree, stood Ngozi. Her pink blouse was faded, her fake gold earrings glinting in the sunlight, her designer slippers coated in dust. And on her lips was not shame, but a smirk. "You still blaming me for your failure, Nkechi?" she said coolly. "Or are you finally ready to accept who you really are?" Nkechi's lips parted in shock. Ngozi. The name tasted bitter now. Ngozi crossed her arms. "You look surprised." "What? You thought I wouldn't check on my dear friend after ruining her life. You lied to me." Nkechi said, her voice trembling but fierce. "You told me Mama Grace was a witch. You planted that poison in me. You destroyed my marriage." Ngozi scoffed. "Please, you think you're that easy to control. I didn't force you to pick up that stick. You did that all by yourself." The words sliced through Nkechi's chest. "I trusted you. You were my best friend. And you married a billionaire while I was stuck in this village," Ngozi spat. "You lived like a queen while I struggled. So yes, I enjoyed watching your castle fall. Call it jealousy if you want, but it was satisfying." Nkechi's fists clenched, her tears drying into resolve. She stepped closer, her voice low but steady. "No, Ngozi, we are not equal. You lost your peace long ago. You live off gossip and bitterness. But I've faced my demons. I've sat with nothing but my regret, and I'm still standing." Ngozi's smirk faltered. "I'm not angry anymore," Nkechi continued. "I don't even want revenge. I just want peace. You should want the same." She turned her back, walking toward the door. For the first time, Ngozi had nothing left to say. The weeks dragged on. But for the first time in years, Nkechi began to wake with purpose. No mansion, no supermarket, no staff rushing around her. Just the quiet hum of village life and the whispers of her own conscience. She started small. Every morning, she walked to the local women's health clinic. At first, she simply swept the floors, washed linens, fetched water. She folded bandages and handed out clean cups of drinking water to patients waiting in the corridor. It wasn't glamorous, but it was something. One of the senior nurses, Mama Ifeoma, noticed her persistence. "You come here every day," the woman said one afternoon, smiling faintly. "Why?" "Because I must do something good with what's left of me," Nkechi whispered. The nurse nodded, and slowly she began to teach Nkechi small things: how to calm a woman in labor, how to measure herbs for postnatal tea, how to hold a newborn properly. Day after day, Nkechi returned. And little by little, the community noticed. One rainy afternoon, she sat beside a teenage girl in labor, holding her hand, as she whispered, "Breathe. You're stronger than you think." Hours later, the girl gave birth to a healthy baby girl. When Nkechi held the infant for a moment before handing her back, she felt something she hadn't in years, a warmth spreading through her chest, filling the hollow spaces. For the first time, she smiled. Not the brittle smile of a woman pretending, but the genuine one, of someone rediscovering her humanity. Meanwhile, in Abuja, Chinedu and Dr. Amara raised their twin daughters with laughter and light. Mama Grace, now stronger, often sat by the window, telling stories in Igbo, as the babies giggled at her dramatic expressions. One evening, Amara walked into the living room with a folded newspaper. "Chinedu," she said softly, "look at this." He glanced at the headline, "Former Billionaire's Wife Now Village Midwife, A Story of Redemption." A faded photo showed Nkechi, her apron stained her hair, tied, simply holding a newborn at the clinic. Her smile was faint but real. "She's helping women now," Amara murmured. "Teen mothers, widows, the forgotten ones." Chinedu was silent for a long moment, then exhaled. She was never a bad person, just broken. Amara reached for his hand, squeezing it. He looked back at his daughters crawling across the rug and whispered, "Let's just raise them with love, so they never forget who they are." The walls were still rough, the windows plain, but inside were shelves of supplies mats for mothers to rest and posters teaching young women about health and self-worth. Nkechi was no longer Madame Nkechi, the billionaire's wife. She was simply Sister Nkechi, the woman who showed up every morning, humble, ready to serve. She trained younger girls, women who had been lied to, abandoned, broken, just like she once was. That afternoon, she sat on a wooden bench outside, staring at the horizon as children played nearby. Her phone buzzed. A text. "Unknown number. I'm proud of you, Nkechi. Keep going." She stared at the screen, her lips trembling into a soft smile. She didn't know if it was Chinedu, Amara, or even Mama Grace. It didn't matter. For the first time, she didn't need the validation. She had made peace. She had forgiven herself. She had become something no one expected, not a billionaire's wife, not a disgraced divorcee, but a woman reborn from ashes. Weeks later, the resource center bustled with life. Women came from neighboring villages to learn to seek care, to find community. Nkechi moved among them with quiet confidence, her laughter returning little by little. At night, she often sat under the mango tree looking at the stars. Once those stars mocked her with what she had lost. Now they whispered of what she could still become. The past still hurt. She could still hear Ngozi's voice, still see Mama Grace's tears, still feel Chinedu's back as he walked away. But instead of chains, those memories had become lessons. Her scars were no longer shame. They were reminders, markers of survival. One evening, as she packed away supplies at the center, a little girl tugged at her wrapper. "Auntie Nkechi," the child said, eyes wide, "when I grow up, I want to help women too." Nkechi knelt, brushing the girl's cheek. Tears welled in her eyes, but this time they were not bitter. They were sweet. "Then you will," she said softly, "because you are already stronger than you know." Their twins grew. Mama Grace thrived, and the mansion that once knew bitterness now rang with laughter. But far away in the village, a woman they once knew was building something that no mansion could contain. She was building peace, and in the quiet of the night under the mango tree, Nkechi finally whispered to herself, "It's never too late to rewrite your story." For the first time, she believed it.